Protections over gray wolves in our state could be loosened tomorrow. The Washington State Fish and Wildlife Commission could downlist the wolves from endangered to sensitive. So joining us live from the department with insight into the vote and its possible impact is Julia Smith. Julia, good morning, and thank you so much for talking to us.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, let's jump right into it. Gray wolves are making a recovery in our area, at least data shows. And is this why the vote is happening? Can you explain?
Certainly. So all species that are listed as endangered, threatened, or sensitive in Washington state have a status review every 5 years to see if their current status still matches what's biologically happening with them on the ground. We do this to make sure that the biological status of the species reflects their legal status under state law, and that's to make sure we prioritize the species that are most imperiled and most threatened with extinction, and that we have that list properly prioritized. So all species are supposed to receive status reviews every 5 years. We actually have never reviewed the status of the gray wolf before in Washington state. So they were originally listed in 1980, and this is the very first status review they've ever had.
All right, so why does this vote matter so much for wolves in our state, especially when it comes to permits and penalties?
I would say this vote is important because it reflects the significant progress we've made toward recovery of wolves in Washington in the last 44 years. In 1980, we didn't have any known packs of wolves in Washington state, 0. And now we've grown to a known 42 packs across Washington state and met recovery goals in 2 of the 3 regions where we hope to see wolves. So although wolves are not yet recovered in Washington state, they've made significant progress toward recovery. And so this vote is simply a recognition that the conservation of wolves has progressed significantly over the last 44 years.
So what do you expect to happen to our state's gray wolf population if the species is reclassified as sensitive versus endangered?
I expect their trajectory to remain the same. They currently have been inclining. The population has been increasing for the last 15 years. We've actually never seen a decline in our wolf population since 2008, the first year that we began monitoring, and we expect that trend to continue. Gray wolves are incredibly adaptable, resilient species, and as long as you make sure mortality is kept low, meaning not too many are killed, gray wolves are fantastic at coming back to the places where they used to live. This vote to reclassify them from endangered to sensitive status would not significantly decrease their protections, and in fact, they would still remain protected under state law from harassment, harm, hunting, all of that. It's simply a recognition that wolves have progressed toward recovery, and the department intends to stay on that path of recovery, and we're committed to making sure our gray wolf population continues to increase in the state regardless of listing status.
Well, it seems like it's going in the right direction, but we have to ask, are there people challenging the vote to downlist the gray wolf?
Certainly there are. It's controversial for some folks. For some, any sort of reclassification or any sort of look at changing protections for gray wolf is seen as a threat toward gray wolf populations. However, the laws really don't reflect that threat in reality. The changes between sensitive and endangered status are very, very minor. And I think what's the most important thing we could do for wolves in our state is ensuring that the right protections are in place regardless of listing status. It's really important that we get these definitions right, because it's saying a species is seriously threatened with extinction when they're actually doing really well just isn't accurate. We need to save that status of endangered species for those that are in true serious decline and true threat of extinction, and we're so fortunate in this state to know that gray wolves are not threatened with extinction.
Yeah, which is good news. So on the other hand, though, people who are supporting this vote, do you have a lot of support for that and people moving forward with this vote?
Yes, there is some support for the vote as well. There are some conservationists who are really thrilled about the progress that we're making toward recovery, and again, think it's important that we reserve that endangered status for species that are in true decline and in true peril. There are others that feel that rural communities who have been living with wolves for a long time and want to recognize that they have taken significant measures to live with wolves to make sure that humans and wolves live together. They take on those measures, and they would like their efforts recognized as well. But this vote or the status of wolves is simply a reflection of biological status and not values.
Well, your work, you're passionate about it. You can tell you've got a lot of information on hand there. How much do you like doing your job and making these decisions, at least at putting them out for the public to be educated about them, to know what's going on in these votes?
I've always dreamed of watching the story of large carnivores get better in our country. And so seeing wolves in a good place in Washington and being able to say they are doing well enough that we feel that reclassifying to sensitive is the right move, that's incredible. And I'm thrilled to see wolves recovering in Washington.
Well, Julia Smith, thank you so much for being with us today. We appreciate your insight and educating us on the gray wolves.
Thank you for having me.